again, and welcome to yet another episode of I Want to Talk About This Album. And today I'm going to talk about March of the Saint by Armored Saint. It's the first, and it's probably going to be the only episode in which I talk about Armored Saint. Before I get to the episode, I'll give you a couple of quick reminders. One, I'm going to El Chopo on January 27th. So if you have any requests of anything that you would like me to cover or scour El Chopo for and find, I will try to accommodate. Let me know. And secondly, I will do the state of the channel, live stream, chat, whatever you call it, on YouTube on the prior Monday. That's going to be January 22nd. So a couple of big events coming up right there. So now we'll get to Armored Saint, March of the Saint. And here it is. Well, my history with Armored Saint, since this is the first time I've talked about them, I should kind of give my history. I've seen them live once. That was it's coming up. The anniversary is this week. It was January 19th, 1985. That was of course the tour they did with Metallica and Wasp. Armored Saint opened that tour, as you could guess. That's it. That's my entire history, at least live history with Armored Saint. I was never really into them, and I'll tell you, I never had this album until last week. And I guess I have my friend Dallas to either blame or thank for that. He sent me a message last week saying, hey, it took me 40 years, but I finally got into March of the Saint by Armored Saint. And I immediately went on Amazon and ordered it. And now I've got it, and now I'm going to talk about it. And I never had it. I never had it on record in 1984 when it came out. I never had it on CD at any point. I didn't have a lot of interest in Armored Saint. For the music that I was listening to at the time, they just didn't fit in. They weren't, in 1984 I was listening to Metallica, Slayer, Motley Crue, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, still Kiss of course, Van Halen, Ozzy, Rat, I guess, and Armored Saint, they just didn't fit in any of those, which maybe some people would like that they were so unique. And I don't think they were unique, but they weren't thrash metal, they weren't glam metal, they weren't really hard rock. They were, I guess they were just heavy metal, and I didn't really like that, despite the fact that I consider myself to be a metalhead for sure. Things like, especially Iron Maiden, one of my favorite bands ever is Iron Maiden, and they're kind of a little bit of an anomaly, because I don't really like that traditional, I don't like Merciful Fate, I don't like Saxon, I love Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, I've done some videos talking about them, I'm not the biggest Judas Priest fan, and Armored Saint were kind of in that, I guess, just typical or classic heavy metal sound that I just was not really that into. So I never get into them. The only record that I've ever bought by Armored Saint was one called Revelation, which came out in 1999 or 2000. It must have been 2000. And for that, I have to thank my friend David Lovett. Now, David Lovett is a guy who lives down there in South Florida, or maybe up there. I can say up there now since I'm in Mexico. Anyway, David lives in South Florida. And I met David. I hate doing these things, but yet I do them. I knew David in 1999, all the way back on the Metal Edge. If anybody remembers Metal Edge magazine, they used to have these things called bulletin boards. This was before social media, so you could interact and insult and complain about everything and get on your high horse or your soapbox. I'm not sure if a high horse and a soapbox are the same thing. But it was where you could go and talk about music on the Metal Edge bulletin board. And I met David on there. We ended up meeting in Toronto. This was in 99. We met in Toronto, I think in 2000 or 2001. He was up there for work. And I met up with him at his work. I think I had lunch with him or something. And I'm still, some people like to say to this day, I will never say to this day, but I will just say still, I'm friends with him, at least online. I hope that we can maybe meet again someday. I don't know how that's going to happen, what circumstances would occur in order for that to happen. Hopefully David can come down to Mexico. I can't imagine I'll ever set foot in the state of Florida, or maybe Florida. I'm not sure if that's the same state or not, but for various reasons, I don't think I'll ever be in Florida. But I hope to meet David again. in person. And but we still, message back and forth occasionally about stupid shit. And so David is the massive, huge, biggest, excuse me, Armored Saint fan I think that you'll ever meet. Obviously, he buys all their stuff. He knows their music. He flies to see them. I think he's flown to California to see them. I think he's gone to New York to see them. Mega fan. I think he has sexual thoughts about them even. I don't know about that. I'm not sure if he actually told me that or if I'm just speculating, but I don't know. Let's say that's true. But so he told me in whatever year Revelation came out, I think 2000, he said, you got to get into Armored Saint. I said, I was never into them. He said, no, this new album is incredible. So I went because I'm easily influenced. As I said, Dallas caused me to buy this and David caused me to buy Revelation. No, this is March of the Saint here. David caused me to buy Revelation and I bought it. I remember it was expensive at the time. And I thought it was okay. There were two great songs on that. The Pillar and Den of Thieves, which I think are both excellent songs. But other than that, never get into them. I know they, I know they had Delirious Nomad and Raising Fear. And I'm familiar with some of their album titles. I honestly know Can You Deliver, of course. That video was ubiquitous back in 84, 85. All the metal shows used to play that video. And I liked it at the time. Didn't love it. Probably even got kind of sick of it at the time. Didn't like that imagery that their outfits or costumes, whatever you call it, that they wore. And I'll talk about that a little bit, I think, when or if I ever get to this album. But Armored Saint, they just never did it for me. Now, John Bush, that's a different story. Of course, John Bush later joined Anthrax in 1990. Well, Sound of a White Noise was his first album from 93. I guess he joined in 92. And I'm a big Anthrax fan. I've been an Anthrax fan since 1984, the year March of the Saint came out. And now when Bush joined, when Joey Belladonna was fired, I guess, from Anthrax and they got a new singer, the rumor was, I don't know if anybody remembers this, I don't hear anybody ever talking about this, Mark Ossegata from Death Angel was rumored to replace Joey Belladonna. And I don't know if that was if it was just a rumor or if there were if he was in the running, if he auditioned for them, whatever. I never really heard anything about that. But I would have loved Mark Ossegata in Anthrax. I think that at the time, and I even think now, that would have been an awesome fit. Because he's very, very powerful, but very melodic too, similar to Joey Belladonna. He doesn't sound like Joey Belladonna, but I think he's got that same, dynamic of really, really aggressive, probably more aggressive. No, I would say for sure more aggressive than Joey Belladonna, but can be very melodic as well. But anyway, it wasn't him, it was John Bush. And at the time I was disappointed because I was a huge Death Angel fan and not an Armored Saint fan. So I was disappointed when John Bush joined. And then I ended up loving John Bush. I would even say the 4 Anthrax albums that he sang on. I'm getting off topic, I know. Sound of White Noise, Stomp 442, Volume 8, The Threat Is Real, and We've Come For You All. Overall, I would take those 4 over the top, my top 4 Joey Belladonna albums, although Among the Living is one of my top 4 albums ever. It could be number 1, Among the Living. But anyway, so back, at the time I thought, okay, I'll take David's advice and buy Revelation, because at that point it was in John Bush mode, and but never get into it too much. So and I've never seen them live since 1985, 39 years ago. So that's my Armored Saint history. So I listened to this album just a short time ago outside of my balcony, and took some notes, which I've done recently. And I'm starting to wonder if I should take notes for every record I do, because even when I do some of these records, Kiss, the records that I've listened to forever, sometimes as I'm doing it in the moment like this, I forget about things to say, or there's things that I think that I maybe don't think of them as I'm talking about them. So in a way, it's easier for me sometimes to do these notes because I've got everything written down here. But for this Armored Saint, March of the Saint, it was necessary because this was, as far as I can remember, the first time I've ever listened to it. None of my friends were into Armored Saint either. So some of the other bands I like, I had friends that were who were into them, so they got me into those bands also. But I didn't know anybody who was into Armored Saint. So I don't think I ever heard this record until a short time ago. It's right here in my balcony. I'm pointing at it. That's where I listened to it for the first time ever. So I've got some notes here, and I think I'll get to it right now. So it is, and there it is. There's the record. There's the sticker. Not they call it a hype sticker. I'm not sure if the word blue constitutes hype, but I'm gonna guess that it indicates that the actual record is the color blue. And there's the back cover. All right. So let me open it up here. I took the picture. I had the foresight. Is it foresight or foreskin? I always get those two confused. To take the picture. Damien might be wondering about that. So here it is. Oh yeah, I guess I can open it. This is the worst part of every video. I remember Mike Pratt used to complain about this horribly, that he used to say you take too long to open the records and just get to it. So here it is, and there's the back. Now, talking about this, I think this is another reason why I didn't like Armored Saint. This album cover sucks, doesn't it? This is such a shitty album cover, just a cliche. Maybe some people like this, but it's just cliche heavy metal, the swords and shields and armor, swords and shields. That's in a Motorhead lyric. Swords and shields. Death Forever, first track off Orgasmatron. Swords and shields and hills and green lush peat. Armor. I thought this was shit. I think even when I was 14 years old in 1984, I didn't like this. And they're on motorcycles, more cliche here. And that just didn't, and I know you shouldn't, it's the music, right? But, Image does have a say in it. So let's see this. Here's the, all right, looks like good packaging. All right, first of all, there's, it just comes in this white sleeve. And this, I guess, is going to be a blue record. It is. Oh, it is nice looking. Cool. I don't know how they decide what color it's going to be, but it's nice looking. And this has got some quotes. John Bush, Joey Vera, Gonzo Sandoval, Phil Sandoval, and Jeff Duncan. Who is Pritchard? Wasn't there a guy called Dave Pritchard in Armored Saint? Maybe one of these guys died. I think it was Jeff Duncan who died. Let's see. Why do I know the name Dave Pritchard? Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah, so Dave Pritchard did play on this, and I guess he was replaced by Jeff Duncan. Yeah, so these little notes from the members, I guess they were done in more recent times, and Jeff Duncan died long. Dave Pritchard died, I guess, a long time ago. Oh, pretty cool. I like that. I'll give them full marks. This is on Metal Blade Records for the packaging. It's got the credits and the lyrics here, and as I mentioned, the band notes there, and this again, this cliche. And look at these motorcycles. Those are not even like Harleys. These are like speed bikes or something. I don't know. All right, so getting to this, I'll put this. I can leave that there. Getting to this track by track. So the first song, and overall, my overall thoughts on this record, it's not that great. I didn't love it. Thanks, Dallas, for making me spend my money on something that maybe I'll listen to once or twice. But anyway, so the first song is March of the Saint. It has, this kind of a dramatic, kind of a marching, big, intro, 30 seconds long, whatever it is. And then it goes into this actually pretty cool, kind of a very, very heavy metal, maybe even like a new wave of British heavy metal riff. And then, it's this up-tempo metal song, very, typical of the time. And one thing I noticed about this album, especially this song, and there was another song, the drums sound awful. The drums just sound really, really weak. There's, what other song was it? I'll get to that in a few seconds, a few minutes maybe. And it's got the big, the backing gang vocals, I think they were called, yelling. A few of those on this album that, again, were typical of the time. Wailing guitar solos. When the guitar solos came in, I think they were trading back and forth, like, KK Downing and Glenn Tipton, and Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, and the dual axe attack, and good bass in this song. I noticed that there was some good, to me it stood out, cool bass in this song. But yeah, that song was okay. And then the next one is, as I mentioned before, Can You Deliver, the only song that I heard on this album. And at the time, I liked it. I think I needed more reason to buy March of the Saint. I mean, yeah, March of the Saint than just the song "Can You Deliver?" And since I didn't have friends who were into it, back then you couldn't listen to things in advance. There was no way to do that. You had to buy the record, and I got burned by that many times, as I'm sure many people did. You buy a record because you heard one song that you liked, or the album cover was cool. Maybe my two biggest burns from that were Grim Reaper, "See You in Hell," horrible, shitty album, and Thrust, "Fist Held High," even worse. I was really into thrash metal. That was '85, I guess. And so there's this band called Thrust, and the album's called Fist Held High, and the songs were Posers Will Die or Posers Must Die or something like that. I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. And then I bought that album and it sucked horribly. And so I never really had enough to get me over the hump to buy March of the Saint. But Can You Deliver? I liked it okay at the time. I love it now. I haven't really heard it, I think, for a long time. But when I listened to it today, I listened to it a couple of times. That's a great song. It's got the kind of like a chugging riff in it. It's kind of that's a really, really good song. I think Can You Deliver is fantastic. And Anthrax had a little callback to this on Volume 8, which I love Volume 8. There's a song called Big Fat, and there's a line that says, you ask me, can I deliver? You ask me, can I deliver? Like a monster crossing the Hudson River. Ha! I guess that's a callback. John Bush singing on Volume 8, of course, Big Fat, and calling back to Can You Deliver? By the way, that's U, the letter U. It's not Y-O-U. Back then, you didn't have time to spell. Everything had to be, there was a lot of brevity back then. Excellent song. Still, it's my favorite song on this album. 3 is Madhouse. Now, a small thing here, it's Mad House. It's 2 words, which I think is incorrect. It's not a house that's mad, isn't it? A mad house? It's a mental institution. Apparently, I guess a lot of people are flooding into the United States from mental institutions. Countries are emptying their mental institutions into the United States. They're madhouses. There's somebody that's going around saying that. I don't think he's a good source of information, though. This was similar to March of the Saint, that it was a kind of a fast up-tempo, very new wave of British heavy metal sounding song or style song. This was the other one that had the really, really weak drum sound. I guess I don't know if it was just me why the drums stood out as being weak on these 2 songs, Madhouse and March of the Saint, but they did. And also had the big gang backing vocals on this one. Very similar, those 2 songs, March of the Saint and Madhouse. Next, number 4, track 4 is Take a Turn. This is one of these, the token quiet songs that metal bands used to do then and probably still do now, that had the, a quiet intro. Judas Priest had songs like that way back then. I guess Iron Maiden did too. The quiet intro and the verses were quiet. And then the choruses came in and they were louder and heavier, and then they went back to the quiet. It was okay. Next, this would have been the last song on the first side, Seducer. Nothing stood out about this to me. It was just a typical heavy metal song, Armored Saint song. Not good or bad, just very typical, I thought. Track 6, which would be track 1 on side 2, is called Mutiny on the World. I thought this one was a little bit better than maybe some of the other ones on side 1. It was maybe not as cliche as some of the other ones, but nothing really stood out to me too much for Mutiny on the World. Glory Hunter, at this point, I got where I was kind of thinking, it's all kind of starting to sound the same. Nothing really stood out to me. Number 8 was Stricken by Fate. This had a really, I thought, funky and really stupid sounding drum beat. The intro to the song and this very cringy, these yelps of, it doesn't sound like John Bush, who became a real powerhouse later, but I didn't like those yelps or that weird drum beat intro. I thought after that, the rest of the song was okay, maybe even better than some of these other ones, but and a little bit different. But again, nothing, I'm not going to go listen to this song all day for the rest of the day, maybe tomorrow. 2 more songs. The last one is, the second to last one, penultimate, some might say, is called Envy. I thought this one was pretty good. This one got my attention more. It had kind of a chugging riff also, similar to Can You Deliver, which I like. And then the last song is False Alarm. Now this one I really like. This one had around a minute or a minute and a half into it. It had a real, it kind of shifted gears. The song changed, the pace of the song changed as it went into the chorus, I guess it was. That was the one, I guess if I had to pick a favorite, aside from Can You Deliver, of these 9 songs that I hadn't heard before, False Alarm would have been my favorite. That's the one that caught my attention the most. Not great, but that's the one I can see myself getting into. So there it is, Armored Saint, March the Saint. Overall, it's I think you could maybe kind of lump this. I talked about this with the first the first albums of the Big Four, Kill 'Em All, Fistful of Metal, Killing Is My Business, and Show No Mercy. Sonically they weren't that good. The second albums by all of those bands I thought were much, much better. Even Exodus, although Bonded by Blood is fantastic, sonically it didn't sound that good. And even though Armored Saint is not, they're not a thrash metal band, but first albums, I guess bands are maybe kind of starting to find themselves. I didn't think this album sounded so good. I thought the songs were okay, but yeah, so it took me over 40 years, let's say, to buy it. And I don't know. So there it is. So remember, live stream January 22nd, 8 o'clock p.m. Mexico time. That's 9 o'clock Eastern. 6 o'clock Pacific. And El Chopo, January 27th. Get your requests in now. So that is all for this. I'm sure some people call it a classic. It's not for me. In any case, it is called March of the Saint.